Hello, this is Dr. Dave Maslach talking about reciprocity.com, the sharing economy proofreading platform that I'm trying to build. And in this particular video, I'm going to talk about whether you should get married or have children during graduate school, build a family during graduate school. This is all part of my thesis help series where I'm a professor of innovation strategy and entrepreneurship, and I try to put out these videos to help out graduate students, and I put them out every Friday. I think that it's sort of helpful advice that you might like, right? So the thing is, with this particular video, what I'm going to go into, or what I'm going to do, is talk to you what I mean about building a family, and then get into the different sort of pros and cons of building a family. There's not every decision you make in life has pros and cons. And then get into, at the very end, and that's why you should stick through and listen to all these pros and cons, is I'm going to help you out make this decision and sort of suggest something that will help you out with making this decision, right? So if you're thinking about having children in graduate school or getting married in graduate school, this is all the stuff I had to go through. This is stuff that I sort of decided along the way. I am married. I was married in graduate school. I went through and then had 2 kids at the end of my graduate school. So it's something I had to think about and sort of weigh these pros and cons. And I thought I'd actually just tell other people and help them out make this decision, right? So building a family is what I mean is you can, find a significant other, whoever that is, doesn't matter what sex it is and whatnot, and then have children along the way. Maybe you don't want to have children, right? That's a personal choice as well, right? You don't necessarily have to have children, but this still really relies or thinks about building a family, however you define that family. And that's really one I want to stress. It's not necessarily one or the other, having kids or, finding a significant other. It's just thinking in general about building a family, because you know what, we're human beings, right? We're all human beings. We are very social characters. That means that one of the central drives that we have is a sex drive. So meaning that we want to be with others, and we want to, sort of extend the human race as much as possible, through propagating it, right? So thinking about the ways, or thinking about this process, it's fundamentally about being human, and it's really important in academia and graduate school because it is such a high stress field to do, or thing to do, that you often sort of weigh these things out and you think about it of like, oh, this is really tough. And so that's the first thing I'm going to get into. One of the points is think about productivity when you build a family, right? So at any moment in time, if you are thinking about building a family, and that includes even before you actually meet a significant other, you are thinking in your mind and you're sort of daydreaming and all that kind of stuff throughout the day of how you can get a significant other, right? We do that. And once we get that significant other, we want to spend time with them. And then when you have kids, you want to spend time with them. And there's going to be moments where your productivity, where you are not going to be as productive as you would like, right? So we are not machines in any sort of way. We don't run 24/7. So, and this puts an extra stress on your life, an extra demand on your life of thinking about that. That's going to reduce your productivity. And that is a sort of naive or basic argument. And naive, I mean like basic argument that we often hear, right? But that doesn't sort of think about the opposite side of the motivation effect of having a family, or pursuing and building a family, in that you really are focused. Maybe you are thinking about getting married in 9 months from now, but you know that you're going to be really focused. You know that you have to work really hard throughout those 9 months because you want to take a break at the end of that. And so this motivation component of it is going to make sure that you work really hard to get things done. Or maybe you have a kid, right? And you know that you're getting up every single night. Well, you know what? You got to suck it up, buttercup. You got to get out there, and you have to get up every morning. You have that kid that wakes you up, and all hours of the night, you got to get up, and you still got to work, and you still got to get up, and you have to have that mentality. You have to have that motivation, and that motivation is going to come from having a family. It's going to come from having that moral support along the way, of allowing you to get up and you have a reason to live at that moment of actually why you're doing the things that you're doing. And that's the incredibly important thing. So the second thing that is important, and I wanted to point out, first of all, my wife and I really do split duties as much as possible. She does do a lot more of the organizing, which is, I think, is kind of a typical American family or Canadian family, where women do a little bit more of the organizing and stuff like that. But I try to step it up as much as I can. I try to contribute as much as I can. So I did get up throughout the night when we had our kids, right? So this was something that I was definitely doing, getting up in the middle of the night and walking them around, making sure that they got sleep and stuff like that. And so I wanted to sort of make sure that you're well aware that I'm not just, that kind of person that is just working all the time and focusing on graduate school, but I'm thinking about building actual egalitarian family, right? Thinking about sort of equal as much as possible, or shared responsibility as much as possible. So the other thing that you often neglect, we often sort of forget about, is that having a family, building a family is a much needed distraction. There is a lot of moral support that happens when you have a family, and even when you're thinking about building a family, that it's so important to have that, right? So you're distracted away from your work, and that the sort of psychology of that allows you to remove yourself from that sort of painful process and the sort of depressing process of doing something that has a very, very long-term goal that takes a long, long time before you actually get any significant gains from that, right? So the long-term payoff, the sort of thinking through and grinding part of it, having a family really does help you. And as well as you can have a discussion. If you have a significant other, you have a discussion with them, and you can sort of vent all of these problems and make sure that you have a sounding board throughout the entire process, right? So that's really important, to have that sort of moral support along the way, because the research game is so tricky. The other thing that you should think about is sort of financial aspects of this as well. So if you have a significant other, and I know that this changes, and it either is going to impact your productivity. If your significant other doesn't work, then you're going to be very, very productive to get done and make sure that you get a job at the end of it, right? If your significant other does work, it's going to provide you some extra resources and stuff. And my wife did work throughout the process. So it's going to give you some extra resources to sort of focus on your research, right? To have that moral support, to have that extra financial support as well is so important. The other thing, so this is the thing that a lot of people don't talk about, and this is something you should really consider. And I'm really torn. Actually, I'm really torn about actually giving this advice and sort of disclosing this publicly. But there's issues with social trust that happens when you have children and you have a significant other, and probably less so much a significant other, but definitely children in academia. There is a really, really strong norm against having children in academia. It's a high performance field. In any particular high performance field, there is typically this idea that you should be an Iron Man, right? So this is definitely, there's a great article by Catherine Kellogg at MIT that she goes into the sort of the gender stereotypes and stuff like this that happens within surgery wards, right? So there is this perception that you have to be an Iron Man, where you have to work like 90 hours a week, and everything that you do is devoted to being very productive, and everything else, well, that's not your duty, right? So you have the trophy husband, you have the trophy wife over there that's doing their duty over there, and then you are doing everything to do with work. And what's really cool with that, and I wanted to point out with this particular article, is that she pointed out that there is a real tension going on right now, because there is a real pushback against that. There is some social norms that are changing against this sort of Iron Man mentality, where people actually want to have a family life and be a surgeon. And they want to sort of think about the different ways of making sure you do have a family life and be a surgeon at the same time, versus, just being the Iron Man, right? So there is this, and this happens in academia. When I read her work, or when I read her work, I really am thinking about these sort of ideas that happen in academia. There's a real push. In fact, there was a couple of times I was explicitly told by some folks that having children is probably not a good idea in academia. And I look around that people do make this choice. And the reason why there is this is because people really want to get to the point where they actually are the Iron Man, right? No matter what gender they are, that they've worked so hard, and now that they're sort of at the top of the game, doesn't matter what gender they are. And actually that's what Catherine Kellogg was pointing out. It's not necessarily the gender of the individuals. It's just the fact that they pushed really hard to get to that point, and they think that everybody else should have to experience this sort of tough journey and make all of those tough decisions along the way that they had to make, right? So they were thinking about that. So there's these, and then the other thing that often happens, or you should think about, is that there are, for sure, there are short-term losses whenever you go through this. And short-term losses, so having a family is a long-run game, right? Building a family is a long-run game. It takes a long time to sort of get to the point where you're getting tremendous amounts of benefit from that. But intermittently, if you do have a kid, for example, you have some kids, there are moments where you're not going to be that productive. Let's face it, there are definitely moments where you're not going to be that productive. If you get married, there's going to be, a couple of weeks here and there where you have to provide support for your significant other, and you're not going to be productive in that time. So it's going to cut back in the short run on your productivity. What's going to happen, though, it's going to shift your performance metrics, right? So the performance metrics are going to shift and help you with survival rather than the performance metrics in the short term. The survival meaning getting through and being productive in the very, very long run of being an academic, being a graduate student, to go through that entire process, right? So the other thing, you have to sort of realize that it is sort of, there is these sort of multiple goals that you have to play off, and you just have to be very aware, definitely be very aware in who you're talking to and what you're talking about, because there is a social trust issue in academia, and it's very implicit, but it is there. It's definitely something to think about when you have kids. And I don't know if there's any sort of positive aspects of that, but there is something that you should definitely think about. So the other thing, the other sort of, the other factor that we often have is that we have tremendous amounts of selection pressure and sunk costs. So the selection pressure is, it takes a lot of work to actually get into graduate school, right? We only take the best students that we can possibly get to get into graduate school. And so you have to study really, really hard to get into graduate school. You put in a lot of effort. There's a tremendous amount of sunk costs to get there, right? So there's all this selection pressure and all these sunk costs to get there. So you're thinking in your mind, I put in all of this effort. I want to exploit my time as much as possible throughout graduate school and be as productive as I possibly can. And any sort of short run things, spending time, even that's why you see graduate students that barely bathe, or they have kind of gross hair, and they don't brush their teeth, is they're so focused on being productive that they forget all about that other stuff, right? But that other stuff is really important to a long run longevity life. Maybe in years and years that it's going to be really important, but in that short run, it is a cost to think about these kind of things. So the one thing that you have to do is kind of a mindset shift that you have to think about. Rather than start thinking about being self-focused all the time, you have to shift your mind to be willing to give back, and to give back to your significant other, to be, to help out your significant other whenever you find one. You also have to give back, and that means devoting some time and effort to maintaining that relationship. And then if you have kids, you have to devote time to your kids so they don't grow up as sort of isolated, strangers sort of people, right? The oddballs in the corner sort of thing. You have to devote and give some time to them. You have to get out and socialize them, be with them, right? So you have to give as much as you possibly can. It's a mindset shift that you have to go through to get to that point, right? And the last but not least that I think is, it's kind of a minor issue, but it definitely sort of plays in the back of your mind, is you have to miss out a lot of different events, social events. And so some people actually go into graduate school thinking that they want to get into sort of college life, a university life. And so they miss out. So there's all these kind of events going on, whether it's parties, going out for beer and pubs on a Friday night or a Wednesday night with your graduate school colleagues, with you, or going to different lectures, and just kind of have that sort of the ideal lifestyle of college life in your mind. You have to miss out on all of that stuff if you think about building a family. It's really hard to do both of those because you're committed to building a family. So that means you have to give up on going out for beers with somebody else and partying with them and stuff like that. You have to give that up so you can devote some time with your family and build that family. And you might not think that that's the case, but you really truly have to do that throughout the process in order to build a sustainable and very robust family that you can rely on and that everybody is happy. That you have to make it's a commitment, right? So you have to not play into the college life that we often think about with the college life, right? So here's the tip. This is what I want you to think about. All those different factors to think about along the way, all these different reasons. I really want you to think of this as a personal choice. I see a lot of people in academia and graduate school that have no kids and they have kids. Some people have kids. I see a lot of people that have a significant other and some people don't have a significant other. It's really a personal choice. It's whatever you choose to do along the way. This is your life. This is your thing. You're building it. You're crafting it. And that's the wonderful thing with graduate school is you don't have to listen to anybody if you don't want to. You can just go and do that thing. You can build your own family if you want to. You can take their advice and you can sort of think about it, but then you can also build a family. You can also not build a family if you don't want to. It's your own personal choice that does have costs and benefits when you do this, as I listed above, but it is your personal choice and you can choose whatever you want to do and what sort of suits you and your own. Maybe it suits you and your significant other, or maybe it just suits you. Or, you have to think about what is important for you throughout that entire process and not think about what other people are thinking and sort of projecting onto you. That's the important thing. That's the important takeaway to go and to think about. So if you want to build a family, but know that you have to pick up your game. You have to be as productive as you normally would as those that don't have a family, right? So you have to think about ways that can help you out and make you be productive in many, in other ways. So that's all I really wanted to say, and that's all I wanted to help you out with this sort of thesis help with, just getting into the idea of this is a personal choice. There are pros and cons. You should think about these pros and cons when you build a family, but it is definitely your own personal choice when you go through that entire process, and so you have to choose that. So if you like this video, do the old thumbs up. If you don't like it, that's fine. I'm okay. The other thing that you can do is, if you want, you can subscribe if you are a new person here. And those of you who are actually already subscribed, you're so cool. Really like that you are paying attention and following along. This is all part of my reciprocity project that I'm building out. The E is spelled with a 3. It's a sharing economy proofreading platform that I'm trying to build to help out graduate students. I really, if it ever becomes profitable and generates enough revenue that sort of recoups the cost, I would like to actually start giving back and start doing graduate scholarships and stuff like that in behavioral science, because I think it's really cool to be able to do that. I'm fortunate enough to be able to do this kind of stuff and to have this platform in this day and age. So I thought it'd be really cool to do it. And so I'm doing it. All right. So that's it. Have a good day. Take care. And I am really looking forward to seeing you on the next video. Bye.